Okay, so what I've got here is, well, it's actually a piece of a pillow I made a long time ago. And it was, well, it was an applique, a machine applique that my grandmother had put on a pillowcase. And the pillowcase had kind of rotted, so I cut it out and I applied it to another old quilt, which happened to be like one of those, it's kind of like those moving blankets, you know, it has like batting in it and two sides, and it kind of is machine quilted. And I did some of my own hand quilting on it, and I mended it and patched it. And to make a long story short, I dipped it in the indigo vat to try to save it, and well, it was just so tattered. And I've started to pull the layers apart, which in some cases is pretty difficult because there is some machine stitching in here in addition to my own hand stitching. This was the original face of that kind of moving blanket thing. And you can see the machine stitching here, and I had coated it with something else and an applique, and so there's all kinds of stitches in here, and it's kind of taking me forever to undo it, but I'm undoing it because, well, I was interested because of the nature of indigo and the way that it dyes, how the color takes and oxidizes on the surface of things. And also in some of the thinner spots it did penetrate, and some of the other spots it didn't. What I was curious about really was what was going to happen when I opened up the layers. And now it's become sort of an excavation here. You see, I've gotten to the batting part. I don't really use batting, but it was in there originally. So I'm taking all these things apart. I've actually got to work from both sides because, you know, with all the layers of stitching here, it's quite attached, more than I know, actually, because I didn't even put all these stitches in myself. So I thought that I would undo this, and I like the idea of dyeing with layers over perhaps mended textiles or whatever, old quilts, and then kind of pulling them apart and seeing what the layers might reveal. So I don't think I'm going to save this batting, although I could use it for something, I guess. And then you've got the fading factor too, you know, there's all kind of at the last stitches here on the top layer. It's taken me days to get these stitches out, which just shows the staying power of layers of mending. Okay, so I guess this was the original blanket top. This is the piece that I had added. Now these stitches are probably just going to come out because the ones that I was cutting are really the ones that were holding this down. You know, even though there's holes here, this fabric is not that tender. Of course, this applique is still stitched down. I don't think I'm going to take that out. I got a nice kind of a lacy thing here, and then this, I'm going to pull a lot of these threads out yet, but it's an interesting sort of resist, this undoing of layers. Some of this, I'm not sure if this is soiled or just discolored, but this is an interesting, oh, I got some more here. These are just layers, but there's some interesting fragments here. I love doing this. And there is a sort of pattern there left. And I'm going to have to see, this still needs some unstitching. See, these are the layers that I added to either side. I kind of worked over the existing quilt, and that's why. So this comes off because the stitches I cut from the front are the same. So I got a few extras here. But again, even the perforations are kind of nice. And the folds left. If I was to take this out and wash it, I would probably lose that. But there's also kind of like dye marks that have stayed in where the stitches are. And interesting also that the sides are different because the other nature of indigo is to hit the surface and oxidize and not necessarily go all the way through unless you are creating a situation for that to be easy. And I think the layered textile holds some of the dye away from that being able to be happening. So this these two layers on either side of the batting will have to be cut apart as well. Interesting though.